In just 11 days, South Africans will have an opportunity to vote for a political party that suits their needs. And this morning, we are shining a spotlight on the new kid on the block, not so new anymore. That's the Good Party's candidate for the Western Cape, Patricia de Lille, who says that she has unfinished business in the province. De Lille says the Western Cape needs a plan on informal settlements which have been neglected. She joins us now in studio to share her plans as we put her in the spotlight on today's Ask a Politician. Remember that you can also send through your questions to our WhatsApp line. That's the number there on your screen, 072 110 5584. That number again, 072 110 5584. Patricia de Lille, Minister, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Is it a good morning?
I'm always good. That's what I know.
You're always good. I want to start off here before we deal with the policy proposals,
yes.
as well as politics in general. Let me phrase it this way. Do you identify as coloured?
I identify as South African first. I think our constitution is very clear that we need to be united in our diversity. And if people, after they've identified themselves as South African, by choice want to say, I'm a coloured or Indian or white or black, that is entirely their choice. Mm-hmm. But for me, I'm a South African, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe, like the late Robert Sobukwe said, there's only one race, and that's the human race.
And that's the human race.
Yes.
But do you accept that there, according at least to our legislation as well and our demographics, yes, that there's a cohort of a demographic that is called coloured people?
Yes, it stems from our history, yeah. Alden. Before 1994, the coloureds were all pushed towards the Western Cape. It was called a coloured preferential area. And so it's not by choice that majority of coloured people live there. I know that in the Employment Equity Act, we still make reference to different races. But that, of course, is to deal with the injustices of the past and to make sure that we build an inclusive society. But at some stage, you know, we have to come after 30 years and say we are all South Africans. Mm-hmm. The problem is with the politicians. You know, in 11 days when we go and vote, all our votes go into that ballot box. And the value counts exactly the same. Afterwards, it is the politicians then that divide us again into the old apartheid classifications for their own reasons.
Yeah, but there are people that identify as coloured like myself,
yes, yes.
And proudly so, that I come from
yes.
a community
yes.
that also identifies
yes.
themselves as coloured. But I want to get to this point though. Coloured people are saying that we feel that we are being marginalised under this democratic dispensation. And
yes.
you've heard this phrase before, weren't white enough
yes.
during apartheid and colonialism. Yes. And now during the democratic dispensation,
yes.
not black enough to enjoy what is envisaged
yeah.
in the Constitution. What's the Good Party's assessment of what's happening to that particular demographic of coloured people?
Well, I can really relate to that sentiment because a big part of it is true. If you look at the lies in the Western Cape, you know, when they say the Western Cape works, it only works for a few. And it's about time that we change it to work for the many. Even though the Employment Equity Act stipulates that you must consider provincial demographics, it is certainly not reflective in the senior positions within the Western Cape. And I always also believe, Aldrin, that yes, we have got this wonderful progressive constitution, but it will remain a right just on paper unless we as a group, a group of people or an individual, you go out and you claim those rights. There's nothing wrong with the Constitution. It can be amended anytime, but it's the implementation thereof where we are lacking. So
Yeah.
I can relate to that because I've seen it with my open eyes, you know, that in fact
Why do you
there are
think that's the case?
marginalization.
Do you think is it deliberate?
Well, it's deliberate, but it is also using people as voting fodder. Because when now, before the elections, especially the Democratic Alliance, what they are doing to coloured people in the Western Cape is not only sad, but I think it's disgusting. Every time before elections, they come with the swart gevaar tactics. Fear-mongering, putting fear into people, to say if you don't vote for us, then the ANC is going to come in here. And they are not even honest enough to admit some of their failures when it comes to the coloured community. They only use this fear. So they try and use coloured people in the Western Cape as voting fodder. And I am with my wits' end to explain to the voters out there. You know, and this is what I normally do. I said to them, look, I'm a Christian. Like you are Christians too. Most of you are Christians. I depart from the point of view that I'm afraid of no one. I only fear my God. And if you are Christians, why do you allow that this fear that the Democratic Alliance is pushing to you, that affects you? If you are a Christian, that's how far I go. And I even warn people to say that I hear your complaints, I hear what your needs are, but if you go and vote for the Democratic Alliance again, then you deserve what is coming to you.
But you were campaigning for them at some point, weren't you?
Yes, but you know what? At the time when Lillle and myself came together, there were 4 principles that I could live with, values. And the one was redress, reconciliation, delivery, and diversity. I could live with that because that's what I fought for in the struggle against apartheid. Once you're inside there and you now want to implement those principles, no, then you can see people don't really mean what is written down here. But when Mmusi Maimane became the leader, they dropped all of that. They came with some stupid thing of opportunity and fairness and all of that. So I implemented those, and the record is there to see. I had no less than 42 redress projects when I was the mayor of the city of Cape Town. So what they say and what they do were 2 completely different things. And that's the main reason why I left. You couldn't deal with apartheid spatial planning. You tried to bring people back into the city, integrate the city. I identified 18 pieces of land in terms of redress, their own policy. And that was my biggest sin that I've committed in terms of them.
Actually, a bit earlier on, we were speaking about a story in the Cape Argus. I don't know how much you know about this story, yes. And this is in relation to the Heritage Western Cape, allowing the city of Cape Town. And this is on this decision about the independent tribunal around buildings, the social development housing that was going to be built in Woodstock. And yes. Now that's not going to happen anymore.
You know,
do you understand what's happening here?
That was my fight with them, Aldrin, and that is why I left. I've identified 18 pieces of land, Woodstock, Salt River, just in 5-kilometer radius. Those unfinished bridges in Cape Town, I spent a year of public participation, and we were going to build affordable housing underneath those unfinished bridges. They stopped every single one of them. The Tafelberg School in Sea Point, yes, they now had a success in the Supreme Court of Appeal, but it's the moral obligation that you have to integrate our cities. They continue to build houses even further away from where the apartheid government used to build houses. And the poor people spend more than 40% of their income just on transport.
Yeah. And you say
Yes.
that the Democratic Alliance is not committed to doing that. But if you go back as now the Premier of the Western Cape, if you do become the Premier of the Western Cape, do you think that this will become an issue of the past, considering as well that the DA still has the majority of the votes currently as it stands in the Western Cape? But hold that thought, and I'll get your answer just after this short break. And we continue our conversation with the Good Party leader, Patricia de Lille. This is Ask a Politician. Just before we go to the questions from our viewers this morning, standing for premiership in the Western Cape, does this mean that there's a conversation that has happened before with other political parties, perhaps maybe even the ANC, that should the DA be pushed below 50%, they will come and support you to become premier?
No, not at all. We have a mandate from our national conference, and that is that if a coalition is needed, if no party gets 50% plus one, our mandate is that we can engage with political parties and we can put forward our plans, our vision. And then once we come with proposals, I have to convene a national executive committee that will make the final decision. But yes, we will be talking to all political parties. We are not part of the choir that see other political parties as enemies. We passed that. We passed the hatred. We are now in a country where we need to build, and we see ourselves as political opponents. Because if we depart from the point of view that we hate each other, how will you be able ever to work together with anybody? Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Patriotic Alliance willing to work with them?
The Patriotic Alliance have got a constituency, and if they're at the table, we will talk to them, yes. I've got some of their policies we might have problems with, especially around the issue of Gaza and Israel. But if they are there and you need that percentage of the Patriotic Alliance to form a coalition, then they have to be included.
Yeah. Is the Patriotic Alliance a threat to your constituency?
No. My constituency is across the country.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
But you have lost some votes to the Patriotic Alliance during the by-elections.
During the by-elections, yeah. Yes, they've done very well in by-elections. I think they've got the recipe, their own recipe for winning by-elections. And I can only congratulate them.
Don't you think that will escalate to even to a provincial and national level?
I think provincial and national level is completely different from by-elections. By-elections can give you an indication of, your support growing. And as I say, they have done well at that level, and not only just in the Western Cape, but in other provinces too. And it's maybe a sign of growth for the Patriotic Alliance. Okay,
let's go to some of the questions that you've sent through on our WhatsApp line. We're going to start off with Tsepo Mutwadi. The question here is, greetings to all. How are rural areas included in all your plans for the future?
We need to bridge the urban-rural divide. People move to cities, urbanization in their thousands. And they come to the cities because, better access to clinics, to schools, to infrastructure. So what we need to do in the rural areas, we need to do infrastructure development. We need to build more clinics and schools and roads. And the district development model that government has implemented over the past 5 years is providing for one plan, one budget to bring municipalities, provinces and national together. Mm-hmm. And you can see many success stories of breaching that rural divide in many areas of our country.
What about the role of traditional leaders?
The role of traditional leaders is recognized in the Constitution as part of the inclusive nation building and having their voice heard also. So the Traditional Council, they make their input, they are part of the public consultation process, and they have got a role to play in terms of social cohesion. Mm-hmm. in terms of building one nation. So we respect the role of traditional leaders.
Okay, another one here, and this is from Kanjalo's joining, sent the question in from Durban. Morning, besides your plans in the Western Cape, why are you not vocal on a Ramaphosa Parapara scandal and to corruption within the Ramaphosa's cabinet? You were vocal during Zuma's time. Do you rate 100% to the Ramaphosa administration? Okay, let's start there.
Yes.
How would you rate the Ramaphosa administration out of 100?
Let me first say, correct, that the Manifesto of Good is a recipe to rebalance society in our whole country. We're participating on a national level in all 9 provinces and nationally. So our manifesto is that. If you have to rate one politician, when the Constitution says the President together with his members of cabinet are individually and collectively accountable and responsible. Now, if you rate the President, he does our performance.
No, the administration. The question is, how do you rate the Zuma administration? The Ramaphosa administration.
Oh, the administration.
Yeah.
Our departure is this, Alderin, that after the 29th of May, nothing is going to change in our country unless we deal with the administration. But
the question is, out of 100%, how do you rate the Ramaphosa administration?
I'm coming to that. So after the elections, you might see some change of the Titanic chairs on the deck, but you're going to see very little in terms of implementation. So when it comes to implementation of what we have achieved, yes, we've achieved a lot over the past 30 years. We could have done better. So my rating for President Ramaphosa will be between 55 and 60.
Is that a pass or is it a fail?
I think it's a pass.
It is a pass.
Yes.
Is that because you're part of the cabinet?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
But then the issue that the viewer also raised is on Parapara. Why aren't you vocal on the Parapara scandal?
No, but that's not true, Alden. People must just follow the media and the press statements that we have released. It's not that we are quiet at all. It's there.
But you decided to abstain when the inquiry's report came before Parliament.
Yes.
Justice Ngobo's report came before Parliament.
Yes.
Good Party decided to abstain.
Yes, we did. And the reasons for that is we believe in the rule of law. We believed that before that report had to come to Parliament, we had to wait for the outcome of the court proceedings because all allegations need to be tested. So it was on a principle level that we abstained because we believe that we should have waited for the courts to make a ruling
In
first.
hindsight, do you think it's still the right decision, considering that the President decided not to pursue that matter anymore? And his lawyer said that the matter is now moot.
It is mute because...
but you participated in what would have led to it becoming moot.
It is mute because of the parliamentary report.
Yes.
But remember, we still have the separation of powers between the judiciary, parliament, and the executive. The courts must be allowed and due process must follow.
But shouldn't Parliament also be allowed to do its own investigation? You came up with the rules as Parliament and said that this is the impeachment rules.
Parliament did.
Yeah, but you decided as the good party to abstain, and that's the point that I'm raising. That you can't just say that it is the courts that must find out what the truth is.
Yes.
Parliament has its own mechanisms to decide exactly the same thing.
But this is Parliament. You see, that's why people sometimes say you are 1 or 2 people in Parliament. You can still, at a parliamentary level, on a principal position, say this is our position.
Our position is that we don't have a position.
No.
That's what abstaining means.
We just look at the record of Parliament. You will see the reasons why we decided to abstain. Because we still believe up till today that we need to get the courts to due process must be followed. They must do their work. And then it must come to Parliament. So you keep the separation of powers also.
Okay, let's quickly go to this question from Sanele from the Val. What changes will you bring to young people's lives if we vote for the Good Party?
Well, first of all, you know, the Good Party is run by young people from our policy input, from our social media, technology, and all of that. young people are not only our future leaders, they're also today. And we encourage more young people to get involved. Because yes, we must honor our past, we must remember our past, but we now have an opportunity, especially young people, to design their own future. And so, yes, we would like to see we deal critically and immediately with the high unemployment amongst young people. It is they are not productive in society. It leads to all kinds of other issues. So our policies, it's on our website where we suggest all the things that could be done with young people, especially in the technological field, that we need to look at our education system that can produce the skills that will be needed in the economy 5-10 years from now.
You also speak about crime and corruption and incentivizing whistleblowers and fund the National Prosecuting Authority as well as the Special Investigating Unit. But I want to phrase this question this way. Former President Jacob Zuma's corruption case, it is still before the courts. Next year will mark 20 years, I think, since that indictment. And that matter has still not been finalized. And remember, there was the Lillle dossier. And we are still here. There was a commission of inquiry. Yet nobody has been held accountable, except for Tony Ngeni, of course.
Yeah, I know, and it's really not fair to Tony Ngeni that he alone had to be the fall guy. But it was on the 9th of September 1999 when I stood up in Parliament with what was then dubbed the Lillle dossier. Since that time, Eldon, I've been most probably called 6 times by the National Prosecuting Authority to start the case and be the first witness. I've been to Durban, I've been to Pietermaritzburg, but it's just not happening. It is now how many years since 1999 where former President Zuma always said, I want to have my day in court. But everything has been tried in terms of playing the justice system to avoid that day in court. And it's an indictment because the arms deal was the very first big corruption where we had to send out a strong message to the rest of the country that corruption does not pay. But because we failed, corruption became another pandemic in our country.
Should the NPA also bear some of the responsibility? In the clip that we played a bit earlier on, they were speaking about how the former president, you know, with the Stalingrad approach. But if you think about that specific period when he was president of the country and the NPA actually defending its decision not to prosecute him up until the SEA matter, do you think that the NPA should take some of the responsibility?
Yes, of course, because they sent out mixed signals. They were not firm. And whether they were political interference, I don't know. But certainly, I think the whole value chain of the justice system need to really critically look and say, we now need to start this.
We now need to start this. Patricia de Lille, thank you so much for your time. I know that we don't have a lot of time in the mornings, but we'll definitely be seeing you at The Rock.
Okay, thank you very much.
See you.